what advice would you give an aspiring investor 6 to 12 months behind you?
I'd say for someone my age, I'd be like, don't try to force your legitimacy onto people.
Yeah.
Coming as a 23-year-old senior college student trying to raise a large sum of money, I found myself overcompensating a lot on my legitimacy. And I'm like, just be authentic. Like your authenticity is going to come now and you can let it come now, or you're going to have to, it's going to come out in bad ways later.
I'm Brian Briscoe, host of the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. And this is a first deal episode where we walk through what it takes for someone to find, fund, and close on their first apartment complex. And if you're an aspiring investor yourself, you are probably trying to do exactly the same thing. So before we get to this episode, make sure you hit the subscribe button below and the little notification bell to make sure you get notified every single time we post a new episode. And now, enjoy the show. Welcome to the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe. Very excited for today's show. We've got one of our Tribe of Titans members on the line with us today. It's Briar Bearss, and we're going to talk about a first deal that he recently closed. 32 units in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So, Briar, welcome to the show today.
Thanks, Brian. Lucky to be here, man. I appreciate you bringing me on.
Absolutely. Absolutely my pleasure. First of all, let's start out by getting to know you a little bit. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got into multifamily real estate.
Sure. I'm 23. I was born in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I grew up and I went to high school around Flint, Michigan, in a really small town called Millington. I was an athlete in high school. I played football in college at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. How I got into real estate really was during COVID. All the cadets went home and I suddenly had an absurd amount of time on my hands. My twin brother, Bryce, plays quarterback at New Mexico State. Actually, he was home at the same time. Like, we got a ton of free time. We're on TikTok, right? And Bryce looks at me one day, he's like, dude, we should invest in rental properties. And I'm like, that's a great idea, man. Later that semester, now I'm a junior at West Point. All cadets get this thing called a career starter loan. It's open to ROTC cadets as well. And so it's like a $36,000 loan at about 0.75% interest. You use it for like moving.
It's free money. If you
free money, 0.75%.
If you use it right, you got to pay it back.
Yeah,
if you use
exactly.
It right, yeah.
Like a big cash. It's like a big pay advance almost.
Yeah. When I commissioned, and it's kind of sad to say, most people use that money to like buy a truck, and it's just like, $36,000. Actually, when I commissioned, it was $25,000 starter loan. It was, most people use it to like buy a truck or something like that. But anyway, go back.
A lot of people, that's what they tell us to do. A lot of we have briefs on this, right? So they tell us okay, you're getting a lot of money. Don't go put it all on black, in Atlantic City. Get a car, you should buy a good suit or something. And I'm like, no, I'll
do something smart with it, buy a truck.
I'll get a used truck to have, because I need a vehicle. The rest we bought Section 8 rentals in Flint. And so that's how we got started. And we've been able to grow that business in Michigan with our best friend and my twin brother. And then that same time frame, I went on Facebook and there's a really strong real estate group with West Point grads. And so I said, hey, I'm getting an influx of capital. I want to jump into real estate. I want to take action now. Who should I talk to? I got a ton of comments, ton of feedback, a lot of the same stuff, go buy a couple good suits, man. And I'm like, nope, already been there, not doing that. And then someone said, reach out to Jordan Isham, who's one of my partners in my Tennessee Home Solution. And then so me and Jordan talked for several weeks. He was kind of vetting me to make sure I was serious, because he had been wholesaling and flipping for a few years. So he put Jordan and our other partner, Trey Chandler, really crazy, because they had been talking about it for a couple of weeks at the same time. And then one day in January of now 2021, just put us in a group chat, and the three of us was like, all right, here's the team. And at that time, we weren't doing any multifamily. We're going to start wholesaling and flipping in volume. My Tennessee Home Solution was born then. And since then, we've kind of built our marketing and doing a lot of high volume wholesaling and flipping in Nashville, Clarksville, a little bit of Memphis. And that's kind of the very base of our business right now.
So started out wholesaling, flipping in Tennessee.
Yep. In
Nashville, Memphis. Now, forgive me for being geographically challenged. How far? So this is Chattanooga. How far is Chattanooga from where you guys were doing the wholesaling and flipping business?
Our office is in Nashville,
Mm-hmm.
and Chattanooga, where the deal is like 2 hours east.
Okay.
So still in Tennessee, but a short, nice drive on the highway. We jumped into that after building out a single family thing because Jordan and Trey are transitioning out of the military now.
Mm-hmm.
So now their W-2 is going to be kind of replaced by the Army. We're going to replace it with my Tennessee Home Solution business that's grown to, 4 full-time employees and nice office in East Nashville. So that's going to replace our W-2 income. And now we're going to jump into more multifamily, like the Chattanooga deal.
Awesome. So you literally got started during COVID, jumping into some networking groups on social media platforms.
Yeah, at the very beginning. Yeah.
Wow. Met some people and took off from there. And you leveraged, this short-term loan, this career starter loan that a lot of military members can get when they're starting out to basically kickstart it using like 0.75% interest, which right now is ridiculous. We're recording this mid-July. We just got the June stats for inflation. We had 9% inflation last year. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, when I say free money, I mean, I really mean free money because you're paying back, you got 35,000 right now. That same lump of money's worth, 32 in last year's dollars, and you're paying it back at a much lower rate. So it's crazy how that works out. But you got low interest. You started using it to invest. Things have snowballed from there.
Yeah. And now we've built out about 8 to 12 single family deals a month in Nashville. Really like honing in on a lean team and a lean process. And now like we're really excited about where we're going to be going with multifamily and networks like Travis Titans and multifamily focused networks to really start building the generational wealth that everyone in real estate like kind of wants. So it was really like the textbook advance is like wholesaling, then learn how to flip and rehab. Yep. And then for us, it worked out perfectly because now we're jumping into mid-size multifamily at 32 units. And then our next few raises, we're hoping, 50 to 100. Yep. And we'll get up to those bigger numbers.
And something nice about that progression is anybody can do it. A lot of people start with wholesaling because you don't need a lot of money to start with wholesaling. If you want to just go out and start buying investment properties, you usually need a lot of capital. But if you're starting out with wholesaling, you don't need a lot of money. You can go out, just do a lot of hustle, do a wholesale, get a paycheck, and then start using those paychecks from wholesaling to do the flips and build the rest of your business. Yeah, what I like about that model, like I said, is you don't have to have money to start. You don't have to have experience to start either. You can just start, hustling, finding deals, finding buyers, and putting those deals together and grow from there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you learn every step of the way too. You learn something new. So then by the time it's multifamily, it's like, okay, I know how to rehab. I know how to source other investors. I know how to get capital where otherwise normal people wouldn't.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start talking about this 32 unit. I mean, usually we spend some time talking about team. We've already discussed how you found your team, how you guys came together. Let's talk about finding this 32 unit. And actually, before finding this 32 unit, I mean, you mentioned that you were wholesaling and flipping and doing these single family homes. Why the switch to multifamily? Why'd you guys branch off into multifamily?
Like I said before, I mean, that was always the blueprint. That was always the plan. And all right, we need wholesale and flip income to replace our W-2s as my partners are transitioning out. Yeah. And then now that is a stable enterprise, we can start going into the generational wealth of the big, exciting multifamily stuff. But we try to stay really focused on securing the W-2 just because we'll work better when we're not stressed about the next paycheck.
Oh, yeah.
Multifamily is a very low paycheck business, or not low paycheck, but in terms of the times you're being paid, like you can not get paid for 2 to 5 years.
Yeah. So I know. Yeah. I left my W-2 about a year ago, and this year I'll make more from multifamily than I did last year from and I was a lieutenant colonel in the military, so you know exactly how much I make. or I made. It's a lot different. It's not hitting my bank account every 2 weeks with the same consistent number. It's a big chunk 1 month, and then maybe 2 months with nothing, and then another big chunk here, and then a couple of months and another big chunk. When you add all those big chunks up, it ends up being a lot more. It's just a very different, it takes some getting used to, is all I'll say. But I mean, yeah, you're right. If you're not stressed about where the money's coming from, it's a lot easier to get into good deals because you're not trying to force anything.
100%. Yeah.
So you guys, the ultimate goal is to get into multifamily. So how did you find this particular property?
So yeah, we're rookies because we found it on LoopNet. My partner Jordan was just scrolling on LoopNet because we had decided like, okay, we're going to submit some LOIs. We didn't really know how to submit an LOI yet. We submitted one to like 18 duplexes, and the guy was like, these guys are inexperienced, no way. So then we came to the hotel that was also on LoopNet, and it was under contract at the time. Jordan called the agent or the broker on it, and she told us, she was like, yeah, it's under contract, but this guy's extended a ton. It's not looking like this is going to close. Like, we'll take backup offers. And we got our LOI submitted as the backup, and sure enough, he didn't close on it. So it came to us. We got it locked up. That was in November, and then the capital raising marathon began right there.
Yeah. That's something, I think that's a learning point for a lot of people. Just because something's under contract, I've seen different stats, and I don't know what the exact number is, but there is a good percentage of properties that get under contract that never close. All right. A lot of people will back out of properties for many reasons. Sometimes there's a problem with the property. And I think when people back out, that's the assumption. But other times it could be a problem with financing. It could be a problem with, capital raise.
Yep.
There's lots of reasons why people back out of contracts. When properties go under contract, that doesn't mean that the deal's dead. That doesn't mean that it's completely off the table. And I like what you guys did. You put in the backup offer, and you just said, hey, if this ever comes off if this ever falls out of contract, let us know. We're interested. Here's our LOI. And there you go. I think that was a smart move, and looks like it turned out well for you.
Yeah. We had a great agent on it. The broker really helped us out and talked us through like, okay, fix your LOI here. And then she took in like, okay, this is a solid backup. So we got it under contract for 2.45 and officially started our due diligence in November, and we ended up closing in February.
All right. So tell us a little bit about the property and also what your business plan is with the property.
It's a 32 unit motel in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And so when we bought it, it was half a motel, like already running, cash flowing. And the other half was all long-term rentals. And it was like class E long-term rent, like really dumpy long-term rentals that weren't cash flowing. So the entire property was cash flow positive, only with half of it being like operational. And when I say motel, it's a motel, but we list all the units on Airbnb, and that's what they were doing too. So it was kind of a perfect scenario for a first deal, because we're really finishing, a half done project. It was like they were mom and pop owners. They didn't want to finish. They didn't want to evict the other 17 people in the other half. They didn't want to do the big rehab, and we were hungry. We were all over it. So we're like, yeah, we'll take this. We'll finish half the stuff that's already done.
Yeah. Nice. So 32 units, half long-term rentals, half short-term rentals, and you guys come in with a little bit of a renovation budget. So tell us about the renovation plan. What are you guys fixing? What do you plan to fix? And why did you choose those certain things?
Obvious, like big value add strategy. Half that is cash flowing. We took them all offline and just walked through them with the property manager. And we took them from like pretty well done, but with some cheap improvements. Like some of the stuff was like falling. It was just like, it wasn't the quality we wanted. So we put about $100K into those, make them like pristine. And so we got like new shower doors and stuff like that. So we put about $100K in that, and that's all done. We just finished that. They're all up and listed. And then the other half is like the big project. That's going to be about like $500,000 or probably more of renovations there, where evict all of them, evict all the long-term tenants. There's a
Mhm.
lot of police work went into that, a lot of drugs and bad mojo going on there. And so we evicted all of them, and now we just demoed everything.
Mhm.
So now that we've demoed everything there, we're getting permits to make sure everything's clean. We're redoing the whole septic system,
Mhm.
rezoned it. We put outdoor amenities. We're just trying to make it so that when we exit in about year 5, it's a very clean handoff, so we can lower the risk for,
Yeah.
whoever buys it after us. So then we can drive that cap rate down, because it's such a much more stable investment, because it has all the paperwork,
Mhm.
zone is clear, here's the septic information, all that. So we just want to make it as easy as possible for whoever we sell it to in the
Yeah.
back end.
And you make a point that I think a lot of, I mean, you called yourself a rookie earlier. You made a point that I think a lot of rookie investors don't understand. You said drive the cap rate down.
Yeah.
All right. And I love that you said that, because, that's one way that a lot of people don't realize that they can make money. A lot of people look at cap rates as being something that's fixed, but, you can drive a cap rate down by changing the asset class. You can drive a cap rate down by reducing the risk. And so you're replacing the tenant base. You're taking, the high risk tenants, and you're putting low risk tenants in. You're doing a lot of renovations that could take it from, a C to a B, or wherever it's at. But with those renovations, you also drive the cap rate down, because you're making the property better. And I think everybody realizes that the cap rate between A and B and B and C are different. There's variations there, but if you can move a property, from a C to a B, or B to an A, you absolutely drive that cap rate down. So anyway, just wanted to explain that to the listeners real quick. But so lots of renovations, lots of people moving out. You're going through, did all the demo, and now you're fixing things back up. What's the plan for managing it in the future?
Yeah, so we have a great property manager on it. PMI Scenic City,
Mhm.
they're Chattanooga based. Ian Pfeiffer is our property manager. So he's been a huge help, like from evictions to now managing the Airbnb part of it too. He's been a huge help. Like slight plug here, Ian Pfeiffer out of Chattanooga. If anyone's doing short-term rentals, like I gotta give that guy some credit, man.
He's your guy. Okay.
He's a monster. He's awesome.
Nice. So running a lot of short-term rentals out of it. I mean, it's a motel, so I guess that's a short-term rental all by itself. Now let's rewind the clock a little bit between back to contract to close. You talked a little bit about the due diligence, and we've talked about how the business plan and how you guys have started to execute. But let's talk about the capital raise, and let's also talk about getting from contract to close. Tell us first about the capital raise. How much did you guys have to raise, and how did that go for you guys?
I think everyone goes into the first capital raise like way more optimistic than they should be. And so we were saying, okay, 1.1 is our target, right?
Mm-hmm.
We'll take up to 1.3, but we can start with 900 and then let the cash flow of the property fill in the rest. We started 506B syndication, got a great securities lawyer out of Colorado that we got from some multifamily mentors that are also West Point grads. We just started plugging into our network, specifically our West Point old grad network that a lot of my partners have built since they've been grads for 4 or 5 years. And I started reaching out to anyone and everyone, sending up the deck to, especially the first one, anyone we knew, anyone in our contact list that we could prove we had a prior relationship with, we're plugging it. And then we're starting chipping away, got some, our minimum was 50K. So we start getting a couple soft commitments, and then reached out to some bigger players in the West Point real estate space that do a lot of big development in the Austin area that, really helped us out, and even like adjusted the structure halfway through, because we send out this deck and a very experienced mentor of ours was like, this is messed up. Like, we got to switch the structure here. And so we switched it, sent it out, and then it's made like all the difference, reached out. I'm very blessed to be at West Point, where a lot of high influential families are from. So I can reach out. I'm like, hey man, like let me talk to your pops real quick. Like let me just let me send this deck, man. Let me talk to him like 3 times, secure the prior relationship, and then rock with it, you know. So anyone and
So fun fact, and a lot of new syndicators don't know this, but if you're talking to a referral, if somebody refers you to somebody, that pre-existing relationship transfers. All right. So what you have to show to the SEC, and so if you're talking to a friend's dad or mom, okay, the pre-existing relationship exists through that friend. Okay. So this is something that I think a lot of attorneys don't really initially advertise. Mauricio Rule did a video on it a couple of weeks ago on his YouTube channel. And I've talked to a couple of attorneys since, but what the SEC doesn't want you to do is to advertise or solicit. And if you can show that you didn't advertise or solicit to get to this person, then you're in the clear. And for people listening, don't take that as legal advice, but it's basically, if you, there's other ways besides going through establishing the pre-existing relationship, then pitch the deal. So we could have saved you a step or two.
No, that's awesome to know, because now I got a lot of classmates of mine who are going to be getting a text from me in the next year or so for a referral. That's awesome.
Always ask for referrals. I think that's a smart thing to do. Always ask for referrals. So whatever. And this is a really good strategy, I think, especially if you're raising capital from other people, is instead of asking them if they're interested, I think a lot of times I would prefer to ask somebody if they know anybody that's interested. And what you end up seeing a lot is people self-select. It's like, hey, I'm doing this great thing. I mean, you don't want a high pressure sales technique. Me personally, I don't like the high pressure sales from the salesman side or from the buyer side. But if you start talking to somebody about what you're doing, and instead of saying, do you want to invest with me, you say, do you know anybody who's interested? The people who are interested are going to say, I'm interested, and the people who aren't interested may actually give you a name and an introduction to somebody that is interested. So anyway, pro tip there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah. So, yeah. So it came down for this capital raise. It came down to like 3 days before closing.
Mm-hmm.
I was on the phone with, I did a Zoom call with one of my best friend's parents who leads a large company, and I gave him the deck, and he's like, how much do you need left? And I was like, so do I tell him we're going for 1.1 or 1.3? And I was like, we need 1.1, but we'll take up to 1.3. Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, we'll do the rest. And that was like 300K. And I was like,
dum dum.
I was like 1.1 or 1. He's like, no, we'll fill it up to 1.3. We'll fill it up. And I was like, thank you, sir. Click. And I called my partners, and I was like, guys, I got it. I got it. Let's go. We're closing. And we closed like that Friday.
Nice
story, like in itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, very exciting stuff.
Yeah, I love it. A lot of hustle went into that, a lot of good stuff there. But so you told me earlier that there is a great closing story. So I always ask anybody if there's any big hitches, after the capital raise, any big hitches getting to the closing table. So time for that story.
Yeah, well, there's some hitches, and there's like, I don't know what's after a hitch, but I had the wall like thrown at me on this one. So mm-hmm. So West Point is like, West Point as a former member of the military, but for listeners who don't, West Point's a military school, military college in New York, just north of New York City. And so like, it's not like a normal campus where I can just leave wherever I want, right? Mm-hmm. And so the night before the closing date, we tried to wire the money, $500,000 for the down payment mm-hmm. from the syndication account to the title company, and we couldn't mm-hmm. because too big a transaction, whatever. Like we didn't have authorization, and for some reason we put me as the signator on the account. Mm-hmm. Who's that? Like my partner's are all able to go to the banks. And for some reason, I was the signator who's kind of locked up at West Point a little bit. I don't have a lot of ease of access to go on and off.
You can't just leave the campus.
Yeah,
when you're
I
at a
can't just
military
leave. I have to get
academy.
approval.
Yeah.
So
some people call it minimum security prison when you're at Naval Academy West Point. Yes. So,
100%. Yeah. So then it's like, oh crap, like who's gonna drive to the bank to go do it? So it's like, okay, Trey will drive to the bank. He'll go the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in class and I get a text and he's like, dude, they're not letting me wire it. Mm-hmm. You have to get to a Bank of America now. And I'm like, crap. Yeah. So I'm like, it's Friday of a class weekend. So my now fiance is flying in to LaGuardia Airport, New York, but I have to go 45 minutes north of West Point to a Bank of America, and it's snowing. It's a nor'easter. So I sign out, I get all the approvals, like, yes, sir, I'll be back this time, whatever. So I get my truck and my truck won't start. And so I call my best friend. I'm like, hey dude, I need jumper cables now. I'm not using your Camry to go through this nor'easter. Like, we got to start my truck. So we get the truck started. I'm driving to the Bank of America. It's 2 p.m. Bank closes at 4. We're going to make it, right? I called ahead. I had an appointment, everything. So I get to the bank 45 minutes north of West Point, which is like 2 hours away from New York City, where my girlfriend is. And they're out of power.
Oh, geez.
So they're closed because there's no power in the bank. Obviously, they can't send any wires. So I'm like, where is everyone? Everyone else is like banging on the doors because everyone has appointment and no one got notified. So now I'm like, what are we going to do? So my partner was at a Bank of America in Alabama. I'm in New York. So I find another bank 45 minutes even more north in Poughkeepsie, New York. So now I call that Bank of America on the way. I'm like, hey, are you guys open? They're like, yes. I'm like, okay, click. So I have Trey have the Bank of America in Alabama talk to the Bank of Poughkeepsie to let them know I'm coming. And I'm 22 at the time. And I don't know how to explain to these people that I have to make a $500,000 wire transfer right now, please. So I'm driving through the nor'easter and it's like the Appalachians. So I'm like just freaking out. My partners are calling me constantly. My girlfriend's calling me because she just landed at the airport and she doesn't know where I'm at. So I'm like, honey, just wait a second. So I get to the bank and they try to tell us like, yeah, we can't do it because, there's not enough time. It's 3:45. I won't go through. And I'm just like, please, like, I'm begging you, let's work this out. And so the Bank of America in Alabama calls the Bank of America in New York. And after like an hour of internal discussion, while I'm waiting for some guy to get like a $5,000 auto loan in front of me, I'm like losing my mind.
Give you $5,000 if you just get out of my way.
I'm like, I promise you, I'll like whatever we need to do. I'll open 1,000 accounts here. Just let me get this wire through. And I got a ton of people calling me and I'm just like, guys, I got it. So Bank of America in Alabama convinced the Bank of America in Poughkeepsie, New York to let us send this through. So we ended up getting the money wired from the Bank of America in Poughkeepsie to Chattanooga, the title company, and we ended up closing. And like the lady at the counter like looked at the statement and she's like, what business are you in, guys? And I'm like, we're buying a motel. Like, just like, please just wire it. Like, let's go. And so that was like craziness. Wired all the money. I still have like the wire statement copied like in my truck just to look at sometimes because it was such a crazy story. And then
we had a similar lesson. I mean, we weren't quite down to the wire on this, but we've had a couple of times where we're trying to wire money. And the same thing, I mean, there's been a lot of bank fraud, a lot of wire fraud. And so a lot of banks, when you're wiring a large amount of money, want you to be there in person. And
I get that. I get that 100%. And I promise you, I'm not a mobster. Like,
and the banks won't budge on this. I've invested passively in a couple of deals where I set up the wire and then it's just like, all right, I guess I'm driving to the bank again. This is annoying, and same thing with some of the larger investments. We had to go through like a full hour, on the line with, we use Chase Bank, but a full hour on the line with Chase Bank to get to the point to where we could wire large amounts from our account without having to show up to the bank, and it's,
yeah,
they
that
take it seriously and
relationship
they don't
I'm sure is
budge.
helpful. Yeah,
Yeah.
no doubt, no budging at all. And so,
Don't budge.
yeah, needless to say, we got it wired. I even got a couple like smaller transactions wired to insurance and whatever. And then me and my partners were so stressed out and just like stressed with each other. We're like, all right, guys, I'll talk to you on Monday. I'm not talking to you all weekend. I'm turning my phone off. And then I drove like 3 hours now down to New York City to go get my girlfriend from the airport. And then we had a great weekend. So it ended up awesome. But at the time, it's a good first deal story.
There's everybody has a hitch, especially in their first deal. And, part of it is you don't know what you don't know. And I think that's true for just about everybody. You don't know what you don't know. We had a hitch on our last closing that I should have understood. One of our partners who was signing on the loan, and this is syndication number 10 for me, was out of the country. And you have to get documents notarized. And some countries don't have notaries, and some banks don't accept foreign notaries. And that's one thing that delayed our closing, is because, I've notarized stuff overseas, but I'm military and I go to the embassy, and it's like, or I go to the military base and I notarize stuff. And for some reason I didn't think that, but there's always little hitches. And every time you go through them, you're like, okay, there's one more thing to check on, one more check in the box I got to put in before we get to the closing table. So I guess lesson learned, make sure you have more than one signatory on your accounts.
Yes.
And make sure who's got to be there in person a couple of days out, because
no doubt.
We've had that issue as well, where we've had to, oh crap, I've got to drive to the bank now. Didn't plan on that. I did something similar from the Pentagon, where I had to, in the middle of the day, get up and be like, hey boss, I'm going to be gone for 2 hours, but little less of a minimum security prison is the Pentagon, but
no kidding.
So anyway, so let's talk about, I think we've hit pretty much everything in the deal. Any major learning points that we didn't discuss already?
The rezoning process is interesting. I think that's a big piece a lot of people don't underwrite. It's like especially when we're talking about lowering cap rate and making it a more passive investment, like the risk is automatically going to go up, or no one's even going to buy it if it's rezoned wrong. So we bought it and took the risk that we were going to be able to rezone it from all residential to all commercial. And that was a great learning process, because I know that's going to come up later, that we've done it once now, so we kind of got a mental rep. So we went to the county commissioners meeting, we talked to the people we had to talk to and got that approved. That was a good learning point, I think. Especially for the first time, you definitely have to put that into your risk assessment.
And that's something, I think you're absolutely right. It's very much going to affect the resale. If you're not zoned properly, a lot of people aren't going to touch it, because I personally don't have any experience rezoning. And so, if I'm looking at something like that needs to be rezoned, I'm going to be like, you know what, let's look at something else, in a lot of ways, or, I don't even know what to do with the rezoning. So good point there. I mean, you're making it attractive to the next buyer, but at the same time, if it's not zoned right and the city or county officials find out you're operating it different than the zoning, I mean, you can be slapped with fines and a lot of issues there. So, all right. So final stretch here. Let's wrap it up with a couple of quick questions. What's next for you?
I'm gonna keep, doing what we're doing. Me, my brother, and my best friend, we're gonna keep purchasing Section 8 rentals and improving our community back home in Flint through we call it the Bearss Company. And then my Tennessee Home Solution is going to keep wholesaling and flipping in 8 to 12 deals a month in large volumes in Nashville. And then we're breaking off and making a multifamily branch, FBG Equity Management. That's on the works in the next few weeks to brand and build out that process. And that's what we're going to be running, syndications on. We're hoping to do another offering by the end of the year, at least start raising for it. And then hopefully next year we'll get 2 or 3. And that's kind of the plan, is let the single family pay the W-2, and then let the syndications keep building the generational wealth, man.
Nice. Well, I love it. And, best of luck to you. It's great having you in the tribe, something else I'll say, but
yeah, I've enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah. And something he didn't mention, he's headed to Fort Benning in Georgia for some training as an armor officer in the Army. And, we'll be, working hard to keep the country safe for the next couple of years. Thanks for your service. Thanks for all that you do. And thanks for coming on the podcast
for your service
today.
too, Brian. I appreciate it. Yeah.
And then actually, I getting ahead of myself here, there's one question that I have to ask everybody. What advice would you give an aspiring investor 6 to 12 months behind you?
I'd say for someone my age, I'd be like, don't try to force your legitimacy onto people.
Yeah.
If I was to talk to myself 12 months ago, because we would have been getting ready for the capital raise, and, coming as a 23-year-old senior college student trying to raise a large sum of money, I found myself overcompensating a lot on my legitimacy. And I'm like, just be authentic. Like, your authenticity is going to come now, and you can let it come now, or you're going to have to, it's going to come out in bad ways later. Yeah. So don't force the authenticity piece of your legitimacy. Like, be upfront. Like, this was my first deal. And I told him, like, this is my first deal. This is what I've done in the past with single family. My partners are experienced in this. They've done Airbnbs. Like, I know it's a risk, but we're going to execute the business plan. And they understand that because they're also West Point grads.
Yeah.
So for someone 12 months ago, especially, younger and doing their first syndication, be authentic with yourself and just trust your business plan. Because if you're not authentic naturally in the beginning, your authenticity is going to come in bad ways later.
Yeah. Like,
you're going to get exposed later. So just be authentic from the front, and then you're going to build trust, build rapport, and you're going to be all the better for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is a long game too. And that's something I think a lot of people don't remember, is they try to force it up front to speed the process up. But I think you really need to, if I were to add my 2 cents to that, you really need to step back and realize that this is a long game we're playing, and you don't want to ruin a relationship by trying to push it too hard up front. And something that I've seen, and hopefully you see as well, a lot of people who turned me down on the first investment opportunity because I was a brand new syndicator, invested in deal number 3 or deal number 5 or deal number 8. Think of it long-term. And I think that's really great advice. Don't force it on people. So don't force your name or your brand.
Yeah.
Anyway, last question for you. How can listeners learn more about you?
Yeah, I'm very active on LinkedIn. Briar Bearss, BRIARBEARSS on LinkedIn. I respond to any message. You'll see our companies on there right in my profile. So if anyone's wanting to just learn or just network, I'm always open to it.
Awesome. And we'll put a link to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. So if anybody's interested in reaching out to Briar on LinkedIn, check out the show notes, and there should be a link to whisk you away to his LinkedIn page. Now, as we close up, once again, thank you very much for coming on the show. Thanks for your service today, service to our country. Really much appreciate that from one veteran to another. Best of luck to you.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it, man.
Hey, if you like that episode, make sure to subscribe. But more importantly, if you haven't joined our multifamily educational community yet, which we call the Tribe of Titans, you are missing out. Get 30 days free by clicking the link in the description to this episode, or go to thetribeoftitans.info, and we'll see you there.